Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater. I want to welcome to the show Dayna DeCarlo and Lisa Sanita, who are the editors of this really wonderful book, Conversations with Cagney, The Early Years by Bill Angelos. It was also co-edited and a contribution was made also by Stone Wallace. Lisa, Dayna, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Robert.
Welcome. I enjoyed the book thoroughly. There was so much I didn't know, as I know that for both of you there was so much information in that you would learn from Bill's manuscript, even though you were both major Cagney buffs, and there was so much more in this. So there's so much I want to ask, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, particularly because it feels a little less like an interview in the sense that they're hanging out a lot of the time. I mean, it wasn't like Cagney sat down to be interviewed. I mean, I suppose to an extent he was, but it was, for anyone who doesn't know, he was doing research on a film, Bill Angelos, to do on Cagney with Cagney. And so these conversations were recorded. So as a result, it has this looseness to it. You know, it has this feel of these two guys hanging out and people coming in and out, his wife and the woman who works for him. So it's really different in that regard. It almost feels like these conversations that were just captured and we're eavesdropping on it to an extent.
Yes, that's basically what we wanted to do, is have something unusual instead of just a basic interview.
Exactly.
And like two guys sitting at a table, just chatting about something.
Yeah. That's what
we wanted it to make it feel like.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you certainly succeeded in that. Before we jump more into the content of the book and how the book came to be, I know you both talked about how you became huge fans of Cagney from, the time you were very, very young and teenagers. Now, I love this term that you both have called Cag nerds. I love that. Cag nerds, becoming a Cag nerd. What is it about this particular actor, this man, that made you want to go and watch every single movie he was in, stay up, very late to watch everything he was in, study his life? What is it about Cagney that was so appealing? You can take turns.
I mean, we watched Cagney movies. My family, we watched Cagney movies when, all the time, and because they were always on TV. But then when they had the AFI tribute to him and they showed the film clips, I became such a fan. It just hit me. And from then on, so I was like 12 years old. Ever since then, it was just such a dynamic performer. And so unique, and so talented. So that was it. Became a big fan from then.
What about you, Dayna? Was it a similar experience?
Yeah, I was 12 years old, and I stayed up one night to watch Angels with Dirty Faces. Now, I was 12, but I was pretty much a movie buff back then. I knew who Claude Rains was and Joseph Cotton, where my friends were watching cartoons, Yeah. So... So I love the old black and white movies. And for some reason, I never saw a Cagney movie until Angels with Dirty Faces. It was on 11:30 at night, and I stayed up and watched it. And the first couple scenes, in the beginning, he's a kid. So I'm wondering, like, when is he going to appear? So finally, he's in prison with Humphrey Bogart. He's his lawyer. He comes in, he sits down.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting down, and just his facial expressions, it was almost like there was fireworks over his head. Like he was acting, sitting down, and not really even saying too much. It was electric. Like you felt that this guy just encapsulated this character, and I didn't even know what was going on in the film And just as the film was rolling on, it was so much more, the way he talked, the way he walked, little gestures that he would add into the character that a lot of actors don't. They just read the words. He just went out on a limb and did certain things and wasn't afraid to do it. He
Right.
was just, he's so kinetic. I mean, he's just, you're drawn to him.
Yes.
And then you hear him talk, and I was like, oh my God, he's a New York boy, because we
Yeah.
love New York actors, you know? And it just, he embodied everything, just the way he moved. And it's like Orson Welles said, you believed every word he said, you know, and it just, he pulled you in. And then after that, the next morning, I said to my mom, you know, I confessed I had stayed up till 2:00 in the morning. And she said, I asked her if she knew who James Cagney was. She goes, oh yeah. And she rattled off some movies. And I said, is he still alive? You know, it was in 1974. And she said, yes. I said, well, I'm going to write a fan letter. And do you think he'll answer it? And she said, that's the kind of guy he is. And it just, 3 months later, I got an autographed picture from him. So it just seemed like, you know, I was looking for movies, getting the TV guide, circling, you know, this was before, you know, VHSs, you know, when they came out, it saved us a lot of hours of sleep. Let me tell you.
We all had to find it, you know.
Because, yeah, you didn't have to dig and wait for it to turn up on TV. Yeah.
It's just everything that and my mom sat down and watched movies with me. My dad, he likes Westerns, and he was like, wow, he's really good on a horse, because my dad was raised with horses. So he put in his 2 cents, and it just grew from there.
Incredible. And you also mentioned in the book, Dayna, that you got to meet him. You and your father actually met him.
Yes.
Now, I know you talked about it on that other, you shared that other podcast that you both went on. But do you mind sharing a little bit about how that came to be, to meeting him?
Yeah, I was 19 years old and reading articles and stuff. I was trying to figure out where he lived, because they were saying Millbrook, and they weren't really saying Stanfordville. So Rhinebeck. So one Sunday we went up, and my mom used to like the foliage in October. We used to just go upstate. And I just said, let's just look for his farm. I mean, I didn't really know where he lived. So we went to Rhinebeck, we came back, we ate lunch at this place, which came to find out Marge owned this bar restaurant. We didn't know.
Right.
And my father asked the guy, he said, you know, does James Cagney live around here? He said, right up the mountain. Yes. And he drew a map. We went up there, and we went into the farm, and we went on the inside road where there was all pebbles. So you could hear us coming up to the house. It was like an alarm going off, you know? And Marge came out, and my father said, I was in the back seat. He said, okay, Dayna, you're up, you know? And I got out of the car, and I said, hi, Mrs. Zimmerman. And she kind of backed away, like, who's this girl that knows my name, you know? She's, you know, where are you from? And so she was trying to gauge, and my parents were there. And so being so young, she just said, wait a minute. She went inside, and she came back out, and she said, you know, only 2 could come in. So my dad right away is like, I'm going. And my poor mom is the one that got me into the movies, you know, my dad, you know, typical Italian, you know, it's just like, I'm going, the wife, you know. And we went inside, and he was sitting up in bed. I thought we were going into the living room. I brought him a palm tree. So I was thinking, you know, what can I bring this guy? You know, I wanted to bring him Italian food, but he was diabetic. Didn't know what to bring him. I didn't even bring anything for him to sign, like a knucklehead, you know? I brought him a palm tree.
So tell him how old you were.
Yeah, I was 19.
19, yeah.
So he sees the palm tree, he's laughing. He was like, he really appreciate it. And, you know, I shook his hand. He was like, thank you for coming. And, you know, my dad right away says, you know, when you're on TV, Mr. Cagney, you control our whole house. And he laughed, he loved it. And, you know, we stayed, and then Marge gave us a look, you know, it's time to go. And he shook my hand so hard, I had a thin gold band that my sister gave me. He bent it. And it just, when we left, my mom says the look on your face coming out. And when Marge came right out, she hugged me. She bear hugged me. And she said, you really pepped him up. He actually cried because you were so young. Like he couldn't believe how young I was.
That you knew those movies.
That I would even know who he was.
Right.
And so eventually I got to see Marge once in a while, and she would invite us to different things, and I would see her at functions and stuff. And, it was all good. It was a day that I'll never, ever forget.
It's incredible. Did he say, what do you hear? What do you say when you walked in?
No.
That would have been the icing on the cake.
He laughed a lot. That's one thing. He had the belly laughs going, and he was really happy. And then, it pepped him up. I guess, he wasn't feeling good that day, and he actually allowed us to come in. I mean, he could have said, look, I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Marge said, this young girl, I don't know what she said to him, but it's a moment that I'll never forget. And he looked really good too in person. At that time he was in the hospital a lot,
Yeah.
But he had freckles on his forehead. Like I saw those freckles, but he had a handshake that you would not believe. He had thick, heavy hands.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. And so, over the years, you're watching more and more of those of his movies. You're learning more and more about this man. You're even meeting him in your case, Dayna. And so so remind me, who was the one who found the manuscript? Was it you, Lisa, who first got it?
Lisa.
Bill wrote a blog. I found a blog that he wrote about spending time with Cagney.
Right.
And we exchanged, we contacted him, and he sent it to us.
Right. And so you read through this manuscript, and so from there you go to him and pitch him on the idea of turning it into a book. Is that how it went?
Well, we read the manuscript, and we spoke to him, and we thought it was great. We're like, whoa.
Yeah,
this is amazing. And he asked us, what do you think we should do with it? And I said, why don't you publish it? Why don't you publish it so everybody could read it?
Oh, okay. So it just came about as you were talking.
Yeah, he was like, what do I do with it? And it was sitting on the shelf for 35 years with dust, and he didn't know what to do with it. And he said, publish it. And I said, look, we have no experience in that department. We're fans. And he said, I trust you guys implicitly. I mean, we were floored. Like, oh my God. So like 4 months later, it was done. It was ready to go for print.
And that was just one part of that conversation that was saved. There were others that were destroyed.
Yes, because he mentioned it in the intro, right?
Yeah,
right.
We had those.
Right, because he had tape. These were all taped.
Yeah.
And then he transcribed it, but the tapes are gone.
Yeah.
Because I know in the intro he says that. Now, did you have to? Did this come about after meeting him right away, or did you have to get to know him a bit before you said, I trust you both with this, or how quickly did this all come about?
It was probably within weeks, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Lisa just threw out an email, and he answered her, and she called me. She said he answered my email, and I was like, oh my God. And so she just said, I'd like to read your manuscript.
Bill is originally from New York also.
Right.
And he would, he was ill, but he would tell us some stories. He was from the Bronx. I was from the Bronx also. So we kind of connected.
Yeah.
And he couldn't believe that we were such fans.
Yeah.
He could not believe it.
Yeah. I love it.
So it's just a great story. His story with Cagney. We were so thrilled.
Yeah, he got so much out of him, and I think it wasn't just a job for him, it became a friendship with
Right.
him that he never felt with any other actor, I guess, working with. And that's what Jim does to you. It's that warmth that he has, and if he likes you, you're in,
Right.
and they had a lot in common. And, they worked on it and for like 6 weeks, and then it ended abruptly,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right. Well, you can
Yeah.
certainly feel the friendship
Yeah.
developing, and the warmth between them
Yeah.
certainly comes through. And you had mentioned yesterday, Lisa, so he actually passed away a couple of years ago, right, Bill?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Right.
But he
And
got
when
to
you
see the
sorry, go
he got
ahead.
to see he got to see the book, and
He
he
did, right.
liked it. He liked it a lot.
That's
Yeah,
great.
he said it was perfect.
Yeah.
And we knew he wasn't well, and he was going into assisted living. And I was like, I hope this gets printed so he can read it, because
Mhm.
his project got canceled. So now we're almost fulfilling his, the job that he had the last time. This kind of makes up for what happened. I mean, not totally, but something. So I was so glad that he got it. He read it. He loved it. And then like 3 months later, he passed away.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow. Well, at least he got to read it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was thrilled. And so now, how, you both said that you're not writers, you don't work in that field. How did you go about focusing on what to focus on? I mean, how did you think, okay, let's cut this part out, let's keep this? I know you mentioned Stone Wallace
Mhm.
Yeah.
was a big help. I mean, how did you really know what would be important to have in the book, or did you follow your instincts?
Yeah, basically, we needed somebody that had experience, and Stone is a Cagnard, and we had known him for a couple years. And I called him up. I said, I got this manuscript, and I want you to help us because we don't really know what to do. And he said, well, mail it to me. And he read it. He said, it's a mess. He said, I'm in a project. I can't really do anything. So I took it home, and I just got the scissors out and just cut out parts. And because there was no chapters or anything, it was all over the
Yeah.
place. Some
Right.
days we talk about one thing and then another thing. And so I just had, my living room floor with pieces of,
Yeah.
sentences, and just trying to put everything
And to organize
cohesively.
everything.
And then, getting all the photos that matched. Like I didn't want to put photos in the middle of the book. I wanted it right there so you knew what we were talking about. Because we don't
Yeah,
know
I like
everybody
that.
from vaudeville. When
Yeah.
you go like vaudeville, nobody's, everybody back in the 30s basically was in vaudeville or Broadway.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But the other names, Senate and Toto the Clown, and you didn't know who they were. So
Yeah.
So we had to research
we had to
all these people.
get
Mhm.
photos this way that people can see who they were. Because I hate going to the middle of the book and say, oh, that's that guy
Yeah,
that
and
we
then
were
get all
talking
the
about in chapter
pictures.
2.
Right.
So I just, went with that. But it was just, I don't know. It was actually, Robert, doing something like this. I don't know if it's because we knew the subject so well. It was kind of easy. I can't
Because you
explain
felt
it.
like you knew him in a way.
Yes, it was like I used to say to Bill on the phone, because we would call him and say, Bill, we're going to do this or that. He goes, stop calling me. He goes, you guys do it. Like he didn't really want anything to do with it. He was like,
I
I'm
see.
busy. You guys do it, and then show me at the end, when it's all
Right.
done. And I don't know if he was surprised or what, but because I used to laugh at him. I go, but you're the author. We have to ask you, And then I would say,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm almost channeling Jim, because like some things were just so easy to put together. It's hard to explain. I don't know if writers have that or what, but it was an experience that was unbelievable.
Well, also having been such fans and read every biography.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when we were reading this, we knew there was stuff that we didn't know, but we knew a lot.
Right.
We knew a lot. It
Right.
just we had to piece it together.
Right.
We knew
Yeah.
about vaudeville. We didn't know exactly, all the people that he mentioned.
Yeah.
So we had to look those up. But it was such a great time in his life,
Mhm.
also, which he always said
Yeah.
that was the best time in his life was when he was in vaudeville,
Yeah. Not the movies.
not the movies.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but
No, because
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have job after job after job. I mean, they
Right.
were starving. They were homeless at one point. When they
Yeah.
told him he couldn't go to England, you were replaced. They had no
Yes.
clothes. They had no apartment,
Yeah.
and like no money. It's a wonder
yeah.
that he kept going. And of course, Willie.
We
know.
knew about the things that in this manuscript, but he talked more about it. There were a little more details
Yeah.
Right.
about things.
Right.
There's a few
Yeah.
things in his childhood. There's so we were surprised at a lot of things too, which
Mhm.
were
Yeah, because he's very private. If you read, like I've read, I don't know how many thousands of articles that I have in every book, everything, and he doesn't like talking about anybody. Like he'll skirt around it or something. But here he said a few things which kind of was shocking because he doesn't talk about anybody.
Yeah.
He doesn't want
Yeah.
to hurt their feelings. But I guess
Mhm.
there were some people that he just said what he said. And
well, and also it wasn't we don't talking to Bill, we don't know, he figured that's not going to be printed. That's just we're having a conversation. We don't know. Don't write that, or
Yes.
or in the
No,
case of
Exactly.
his wife also.
yeah, we kept
who's in
that
this.
in
Yeah.
his
She's like,
first thing.
She's
Yeah,
she's
she's like,
I
"Don't
was
write
laughing
this.
when she was like, don't write that
Don't
down
write
or take that out.
that."
Only if
Um,
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
which is another great part of the book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted to get to that because I found her really interesting too. Because it's true, because he was so modest. Even when you see him in other interviews. I just watched one yesterday from the early 80s, and it was sort of like it's I can understand why people would expect him to perhaps say something so brilliant or profound about what he did, and it's like, hey, you're a legend. How did that feel? He's like, just a job, whatever.
Yeah, that was Tom Snyder. You watched
That
Tom
was it. That
Snyder?
was the Tom
Yeah.
Snyder. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good interview. I mean,
I liked it.
considering- Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I find that really interesting. And I don't know if I was curious what you both thought. I don't know if that was perhaps just more to do with the men in that generation, men who are working in whatever field it is, who just weren't open with their feelings. I mean, John Ford was similar with when later on when people would talk about his films or interview him, he was
Yeah.
very short, just whatever, making a little movie, they didn't talk about it with any sense of this is so important or this is so creative. I find, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but I find certainly in the last while, actors or filmmakers are more open with their feelings or how passionate they were about what they're doing, and it's great to hear. But it's just interesting to me to see Cagney or others in that generation look at it in such a simple way, like just putting food on the table, just paying the rent. But you can't help but wonder, is that really how they felt? Because as you said, Dayna, you met him and afterwards he teared up. He was so moved by how you felt about his work. I was curious what you both thought. Do you think it was just sort of not wanting to be showy, that they were just kind of short with how they looked at these things? Or what did you both think? What was your impression?
Well, I think he was a shy guy
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't, he wasn't this bragging,
Hmm.
although played conceited characters in the movies, he was the opposite of that. So
Right.
he wasn't that type of guy,
Yeah.
that type of man. She was just a very honest, gentle guy.
Yeah, you could probably go back from his childhood. That's the way he was.
Right.
He wasn't showy. He hated conceited people. And to him, acting was putting groceries on the table. He never once said, I love acting. He loved
It's interesting,
dancing,
isn't it?
He's a
Yeah.
dancer.
and he was good at it. Because I was saying to Lisa, we played sports and everything. You got to love what you do to be good at it. You
Oh
can't
yeah.
just
Yeah.
do something and be great at it and not love it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he was great at it. And it was an easy way, he thought, it was good money.
Yeah.
So to him, it was, and acting was easy for him.
Mm.
But as far as talking about himself, no, he just would shy away from it and give somebody else the credit.
Yeah.
He would not. It's just the way he was.
Right.
I love that about him though, because it makes it more mysterious.
Yeah.
It makes him even more believable in these parts, because obviously he was in touch with his emotions to bring that to life, and all the
Mhm.
different parts that he played as actors need to do. But he would never, say, okay, let me tell you how I did this or what I used. I
that's
find
the
that so
thing.
fascinating.
No.
He would always say, just don't show it, just do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't have to reveal
Exactly.
how you do something. You just get
Yeah.
on there and do it. That's a
I-
professional. That's a professional.
Exactly. I would have loved to have seen him on something like Inside the Actors Studio in the 90s.
I
Oh
know,
no,
we used to
yeah,
say
He
it.
would have been.
I
He
didn't want to
know.
go
would
on
have
that.
given
No,
such short
he would,
answers.
he would say
Oh
fooey.
my God. I don't know if he would go on that, but it would have been interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
'cause I
for
used to
sure.
watch that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because somebody asked him, "Did you ever take acting lessons?" And he said, "We didn't bother with that."
Right.
He said,
Yeah,
"We didn't
you
bother
just
with that."
learned
know.
as you went, and you just
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
he
it was a necessity back then. I mean, they didn't have like
credits vaudeville for his training.
yeah.
Right.
11 years of training. If you were in vaudeville, you did everything.
That's
you
right.
danced, you sang, you acted, you learned your craft.
Comedy, everything.
Comedy. So they were thrown
Yeah.
into that, and he loved it.
Yeah, it was a different time. There
Yeah.
wasn't as, I mean, there was some, but there wasn't as much formal training as that would come later in his later
Right.
generations. So I mean, it's interesting with him because and as you both know, loving classic film, generally speaking, you'll see actors perhaps are more theatrical or broader than you would see in the 50s later. But he was one of the ones who was always so truthful and realistic. Like, he never faked anything. He never was
No.
theatrical, everything. I mean, I know he would often say, just you got to hit your marks and tell the truth, right? And he
Right.
certainly, so however he got there is a mystery. But I mean, that's what's fascinating about him, is
That's
that
exactly, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The mystery, because he's not a tell-all
exactly.
person.
Yeah.
So, you want to find out everything you can,
Yeah.
what was in the back of his mind, what was, but what we found in the manuscript and put into the book was a lot of things that we didn't know.
Right. Right.
Which was,
Yeah.
it was so great reading this.
Yeah.
Well,
It-
what? Sorry, go ahead, Dayna.
No, it was just a lot of times. I mean, as growing up, he was very observant. So a lot of things that he saw that either it could be bad or good, he stored it. And it
Right.
just seemed like he would remember certain things, how guys treated women, how they walked or talked or whatever, how they treated women. And it seemed like he would wait for that moment to say, I'm going to use that little
Mm,
business, as he would call it, for this scene. Like, I don't even know how he would remember all of this. Like, he was, observant.
he's just a
He was an
sponge.
imitator. Yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely was. And, he was very intelligent too. A lot of people think, he's in New York, Lower East Side, which he wasn't born. He was born there, but he moved
Right.
to
The Upper East
Louisville.
Side.
But he
Right.
was very smart. So he, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of intellectual actors seem to be the better actors, and some just read the part. They don't understand the character, where he truly understood the character and how
Mhm.
he's supposed to play certain things. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
something that I see in him that there's no way other actors would have done what he did in that scene. Like, he just embodied that person.
It really is remarkable, and I know in that other podcast that you shared with me, you said something which I agree with, is that there's really no one like him. I mean, I guess the closest thing would be like Joe Pesci's the Italian version of him, but he's still very different in a lot of ways. Even though he reminds me of Cagney in some ways, but more on a surface level. Like, he's tough, but yet he's so small. He's Italian, where Cagney was Irish.
I was going to say, Cagney had the quality that almost in every one of his movies, he could play the worst character. You still like him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Joe
and Pesci's
Pesci
like that too.
is not
Well,
like,
sometimes.
to me, I don't think that of
Right.
anybody.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah.
get that sympathy
Never.
from
De
his
Niro,
character.
Pesci, great actors, but they don't have that quality. Robert De Niro played a rotten, he could be whatever, Cape Fear, Taxi. You hate him.
Yeah,
You hate him.
Cagney, you wanted him to live.
You didn't.
You didn't
Right.
want him to die. Like, you still, even though he killed, he did whatever, you still wanted him to escape. And
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
know,
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
still felt for him. He had that
Yeah.
quality that a lot of actors didn't have.
Peter Bogdanovich tells a story when he and Orson Welles are watching White Heat.
Yeah.
And, at the end, he says, we were rooting for Cagney. Still at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I
True,
know what
he
you
just-
mean. There's a certain vulnerability. There's a certain softness, boyishness there.
Exactly. And there's no one that
Yeah.
has that quality.
Yeah.
And it's so unique.
So, as you were saying earlier, yes, you're reading the manuscripts, some things you knew. So were some of these things, I'm because I know he also had a memoir. I haven't read his memoir, but did he not talk about like what's in the book, the fact that his father was an alcoholic and the fact that he was stage fright on vaudeville? Were these things not really well known?
There were some things, the stage fright, I
Was
think
mentioned.
he mentioned that in a few interviews, but not like we knew later.
Yeah.
We went into it in a little more detail. And his father, we knew that his father was.
Yeah,
he
he
talked about that.
mentioned he was a drunk, but was going to Blackwell Island and all that stuff.
We
did
didn't
not
find
know.
that.
I
We didn't
mean,
know that.
Just knowing, like, Bill was asking him, did you even talk to him about it? And he said, yes. Do you want to go back there or not? And he would say no, but he would promise, and then he would hit the saloon again. He was an alcoholic, and and that's where they sent him to Blackwell, because it was like petty thieves, misdemeanors, alcoholics. They sent him there for 6 months, and his father was pretty upset being sent there, but
Right.
it seemed like it didn't work when he came home. I think it was like, what did he say, a couple days or something,
Yeah.
and he went right back drinking.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, Cagney always credits his mother for his,
yeah, his mom
keeping that family together. They were a
Yeah.
strong bond.
Yeah, get
Oh,
an
yeah.
education, stay out of trouble. She was the backbone of that family. She really kept them together. I mean, you
Now-
look at them; they all graduated from college except for Jim. He had to leave
Right.
to support the family.
That's
So
right,
they all did
yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
It's
For those days,
yeah, especially those days.
you were lucky to graduate high school.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
Yeah, that's a
Mom
good point.
stressed that.
Yeah, work, make money.
Yeah.
Your family, they stuck together. They were a tight family, really tight.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, he was talking about his closeness with his brothers and everything. I'm curious, how would you compare this to his memoir? I mean, because I know we touched on this, Dayna, because some people I know who read his memoir didn't care for his memoir. So was he more guarded in his memoir?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah. A lot of things were cut
Well,
out.
it's not a tell-all.
Oh,
It's
is that
those
right? Yeah.
Memoirs. If you read Hollywood, Kirk Douglas, if you read, they're like tell-all books. They're, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he wasn't like that. He was not gonna,
No, he said
he
it was
wasn't gonna do it.
he called his memoir a hop, skip, and a jump. He did it because, like Pat O'Brien said, you better do it before someone else does it. So he was forced to do it. And so you can see, you know, it's good in everything, but you want more. And, you know, John McCabe.
That's what I heard.
With Cagney years later, you know, after he passed, and a lot of that was cut out of the first book because he was his ghostwriter, was put into his book. That's a very good book to read.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
John McCabe, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that was missing in the first book. It's in that one.
I see. And had there been another biography written on him before his memoir? Was that
there's
why?
There's a few, yeah.
Oh, there was. Okay.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug
Right, so-
Green, and yeah, there was
But
a
the
lot.
best one by far is John McCabe, because he knew him, spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah,
And he was an actor. He was, you know, it's a 400-page.
yeah, I would read, you know, Cagney by Cagney first, and then John
Yeah.
McCabe's book.
Okay.
And it'll
It's
fill
kinda-
in, it
yeah.
fills in all the
Yeah.
holes in the first book.
Yeah.
In Cagney's
Okay.
book.
I'll have to check those out. And what did you both personally find were the most interesting discoveries in the manuscript that you didn't know before? Was there anything that just really stuck with you all these since you read it?
There's a lot, actually. I mean, with his dad, you know, being upfront about his dad finally. I think Willie, because she always stayed in the background. She rarely is in any of the interviews, even in the magazine, she'll have like a sentence or something. And so she
No,
gave
she
her
never,
side.
yes, and she kept saying, don't put me in this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, don't write this. And that's the same thing she did with his autobiography. She said, no, I don't want to be part of this. And he said, you know,
Right.
but you're right, that there's a lot of her in the conversation
Yeah, that's why
with Bill,
Yeah.
and he said she was great.
Yeah, I really liked her as well. I mean, I didn't realize his wife had been in vaudeville as well, that she was a performer. I had no idea. I did not
Yeah,
know
that's
that.
how they met.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty interesting to me. I wanted more of her because she seemed like a character. Just like she seemed
Definitely.
like I had a vision and a voice in my head, you know. I liked her a lot. I wanted to ask something I was a little unclear about, was his experience with Screen Actors Guild, with SAG, that he was very much a part of starting. So this incident of him, someone trying to kill him. Now, was this the mob? Like, what was the intent there? Because he says, I just wanted to read it because I think it was page 80 or in the early 80s. I don't know if it was no, it wasn't the studio that were trying to kill him. It was something to do with the mob, I believe.
Yeah, it was the labor, Willie Baylig. I don't know how to say his last name.
Byoff, I think.
Byoff?
Willie Byoff.
Yeah, he was from Chicago, and he was a mobster. And he was head of the labor issue. So a lot of the gangsters went to Hollywood and try to get in as actors or muscle their way in. And
Right.
He was filming Each Dawn I Die, and Willie knew that George Raft was in that movie. Of course, everybody, you know, who was a mobster knew George Raft, and they were going to drop a light on his head just to, you know, to make a point that I could take out your top movie star if you don't go,
Okay.
you know, you don't put our slate, you know, you don't go with what we want to do in Hollywood, because they wanted to basically take over. And
I see.
Jim was against it, you know, being a SAG member. They all were against it. They didn't want mobsters around. I mean, Bugsy Siegel used to go to, you know, the sets all the time. They loved the movies.
Ah,
So
I see.
he found out that George Raft was in the movie, and he stopped it. And George later said, you know, Jim is a good guy. You hurt him, you hurt me. So it was kind of called off. But
I see. So they stopped. Okay, so Raps, yeah, because
Yeah.
I see that Rap stopped it, because it says here it's page 181 when Bill says, so they actually tried to take over from the inside, and Jim says, oh no, I do remember them working like hell, talking to the guys that were on our side, the tough ones, and they appointed them sort of their bodyguards. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if he was referring to. Oh, sorry. He goes on to say, Bill. So when you say they were putting up a slate, they got a group of people together that they wanted to run for office, and he says that's right. Actors, though, yes, actors. So I see. So it was that the mob. These people actually wanted to be in the movie, so they thought we'll take over. Oh
Yeah,
God.
take over from the
Okay.
inside. Because it was a lot of money being made.
Yeah. Right.
A
So they
ton of
wanted
money
in.
back then, and they
That's
wanted a
interesting.
taste of it.
I see. I
So
see.
the actors,
I had misread it. I thought it was that this, because the studios were against the. I don't know if this was the case, but they were perhaps against the formation of SAG, and so they thought, if this
Well,
Cagney guy's trying to
they were
create this,
sort
let's
of.
rub them out. And I think they were against it. I'm sure.
Yeah, they were, because
Yeah.
they wanted to more pay,
More money. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they profits from the movies. I mean, they were not paid if they went on costume fittings,
Yeah. The fittings.
or
Yeah.
traveling, or it was on their time and
Yeah.
their dime, and it just seemed like they worked all the time. As Jim
Yeah.
would say, it's like a factory, and it had to end. So the studio was a little upset, because it was like a 9 to 5 job after a while, where they worked
Yeah.
them all night until like 2 in the morning.
Oh, I know, it's totally unfair.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I knew about that. I knew that he was instrumental in starting SAG, but I didn't know about the mob connections. That's really
Yeah.
wow. That's really, so that must have been terrifying for him. I know he didn't talk about it, but
He probably, I don't think he was appointed a bodyguard because Robert Montgomery,
yeah,
but I don't think he would have done that himself. I think he would have maybe been a little afraid for Willie's welfare, but for
Yeah.
him, the gangsters liked him,
right.
really liked him. So if one guy wanted to take him out, I don't think he would have been, going up to Carmel somewhere and hiding or something like that. It's that's not in his DNA. He would
Right.
just, keep going and try to settle it or something.
Right. Yeah. Well,
He
I
was a
mean,
tough guy,
he was,
even
as
though he
he
didn't
fought a lot
show it.
growing up,
Yeah, yeah.
as he talks
So,
about. So I'm sure he would have just, well,
I'm sure
had
if
it
you
out with
found
them
the
in
guy
some way.
in an alley, you would have taken care of him easily.
Yeah. Now Margaret Zimmerman, who was who you met, Dayna, and basically worked for him. I mean, how did she have so much power even to like squash the film project that Bill was working on? That was, or is it unknown?
Well, Jim, I guess, with the conversation when Bill called him, because it was near his birthday, Marge had called him and said, you're off the project, you left food in the refrigerator. And then Jim got on the phone and it was like, I love the pages you sent me and everything. I don't think he was told. But if you go back, Marge had the restaurants, he liked the food, she'd send them food. He got sicker where he couldn't drive, and Willie couldn't drive because their eyesight, was going. And he really had no one up there other than the guys that worked on his farm that he really knew. I mean, he probably knew some people, but he didn't really want to bother them. So Marge I guess they had a friendship at that point. So he trusted her. He asked her to do some things, drive him, this, that, and the other thing. And it just came to the point where he said, we're getting older. We need somebody to take care of us. And his family, his daughter was in California, his son was in Maine. Who's going to take care of them? So being that he trusted her already and she lived there, she took on more responsibility and more responsibility. And I think when it came to not so much ragtime, but Terrible Joe Moran, she bit off more than she can chew. I think she felt that she could handle it, Robert. There's a lot. I mean, she was taking care of her family, a farm, two elderly people. One is an icon. You can't imagine, all the people trying to get to him on the phone, visiting,
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
and thinking now she's like an agent of his. So I don't know if she realized that, or Jim just didn't trust anybody and just said, you do it all. I want you to do
Yeah.
it. It's never really stated anywhere. I think she had a lot to handle. People blame her for this and that. I mean, just think of, she was probably overwhelmed with
Mm,
all these things. It wasn't a power thing. She truly loved him. And you can just, when I met her 3 times, I met her, like you can tell she really cared about his health. She wasn't doing this for the money or anything, even though like she was executive producer and one thing or whatever. But there was a lot of things maybe she could have delegated to somebody else, but all his Hollywood friends were in California. And
mm,
so they needed to be in New York. So maybe it was just easier. And he was a very private man. So he just probably felt like, let's just keep it in the family. You take care of it,
Yeah.
and just do whatever. Like Bill told us, like, just go ahead and do it. Don't bother me,
right.
stop calling me. So maybe it was the kind of the same thing, unless, there was something really important where she was like, Jim, you got to do this or that. But it was very difficult, I think, for her to
Right.
do all of that.
Oh, certainly. I wonder if Bill, like, did Bill ever mention, what, I mean, was it, he finds out that the project's over, but he didn't really try to talk more directly to Cagney about it? Was that just because he didn't want to get in between him and Marge, or did he ever talk about that?
No, he didn't. But what happened was, it wasn't only that he was fired. It was the National Film Society Awards. I went to actually to take pictures, and she saw me and she says, "Do you have tickets?" I said, "No." And she gave us tickets. My parents were with me because my dad was like, "You're not going to the city by yourself. You're 19 years old, 20 years old." So they came and she saw me right away. She hugged me, and it was black tie and I had jeans on and we weren't dressed at all. And I asked where Mr. Cagney was because everybody was waiting for that to come through the elevator. It was only her. And she said, he's not feeling well. He's at the Carlisle, but they're going to pipe it through where he can watch it. Sylvia Sidney was there, Gloria DeHaven, Margaret Hamilton. A lot of the older were getting the Golden Award, but he was getting the best award that they were giving. So Liza Minnelli was there, Martin Sheen. And after the show, Martin Sheen, Liza Minnelli went into the limo and they were talking about Marge.
Right.
And the limo driver was Marge and Jim's limo driver. So he told her what they said about her. And she just said, that's it. So it wasn't all
Mm,
Bill. It
right.
was, oh, really? They're saying that. And which is a shame because, they had something good. He was very interested in doing this project. Like he was, I think it was helping his health too. He had a project to do and it kept his mind going. But
They wanted him to be in
yeah.
part of this, like in the film.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it was like it almost sounded like a docudrama, almost like a
yeah.
like documentary, but then also dramatizing parts of his life where Martin Sheen was gonna play him. Sounded really appealing. Sounded promising. It's too bad that it didn't happen.
Yeah, but it's just never stated. Bill was very he had a grudge against Marge because when we were doing this, he was like, get in touch with Bill Greenblatt, get in touch with Martin Sheen. Like he thought it was like the 50s or something where you just pick up the phone and you try to call these people. It's like, Bill, how do I get in touch with these people? They have agents and everything. And like we tried, we like Bill Greenblatt, he was going to be the producer. We tried to get in touch with him. He didn't return our calls. But you know, we really wanted to talk to Martin Sheen and Liza Minnelli to kind of get their perspective of what they felt about what was going on and what happened. Because
Right.
it just
fizzled. That was
yeah,
it.
you know, she just said, you're off the project and we're not doing it. So I don't know. And knowing Jim probably said, well, there's another project that you got me into and we never finished. Because there's other
Right.
things they try to, and he
That's
goes,
show
I know
business.
what they're trying to
That's
do.
show
They're
business.
trying to get me
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
to
true.
do something, keep me busy kind of thing, because it's happened before. And he probably just said, oh, the hell with it. You know, that was,
Right.
you know, so there
Yeah,
was,
it's too bad.
yeah.
That's too bad it ended that way, but at least it came to something, which is this again, great book, Conversations with Cagney. Do you both, I know I asked you, Dayna, a favorite of yours, Angels with Dirty Faces with Cagney, which is mine as well. Do you have a favorite, Lisa? Favorite film of his, or is it hard to say?
Of course, Angels. I love Yankee Doodle Dandy. I love The Strawberry Blonde.
I haven't seen that yet. I've been meaning to.
That's one of my favorites. I mean, there's so many. There's so many that are my favorites. I mean, Angels, I think, is a lot of people's favorites because it had to deal with the kids and his
Yeah,
with the
that's
kids,
great.
and that's a movie that it's got the greatest ending in movie history.
Oh, it's brilliant.
The greatest ending in movie history. So it's so heart-wrenching that, you know, and that's the Cagney quality that you feel so sad, even though he was a killer.
Right.
You know, who could pull that off? So I think that's a great film. But I have that. I love that. I love a lot of them. We're sitting right here and I have all the DVDs, which is so great because you can, you know, put whatever movie you want on, right? So
yeah,
I like, you know, he had different characters too. He didn't play the same character because we always say we don't try to compare, but it always comes up sometimes with Bogart. And you know, we always say, you know, how could he be like the AFI #1 best actor?
Yeah, we don't
like,
get it.
You know, to me, he plays the same role all the time.
You can't,
you know, you
compare the
yeah. He often played the same type, Bogart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
whereas Jimmy was much more versatile.
Yeah, he may have made better movies in the 40s.
Right.
Where Jim was doing his production, and some of them failed. Some of them made money, but people wanted him to be the tough guy. They didn't want to be the sweet charmer kind of guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, his production company, but you give him a lot of courage for stepping out of the studio and saying, look, we're going to do our own studio and production studio with his brother, Bill. But
which was a big risk at the time.
And I think a lot of the roles that maybe Bogart got would have gone to Jim. I'm not sure if he would have taken the tough guy roles because he really wanted to get out of that. And then, until White Heat, when he went back to Warner's, you know, it was almost like he was forced to do that because he came back and he, you know, the studio, his production company needed money too.
Lost all the money.
You know, so he made that and he changed a lot of things in it. But, you know, the 50s, you know, he still made a couple tough guy roles, but he was the best at it. So, you know, even though he fought it so much, there was no one like him. Everyone always says, who's the best gangster? It's Cagney. I mean, he lived it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, and just the way he used to talk, you know, the gangster isms and stuff that
certainly
heard. You know, he was from the city. Like he said, a lot of people in Hollywood at the time were from the country. They weren't urbanites. They didn't know, you know, gangsters or anything like that, just what they read in the headlines. And Cagney lived it.
He always said he knew them.
Yeah.
He knew what they were like.
He knew how to,
was raised with them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you can see it. You can certainly feel it. A film of his, not necessarily my favorite that he was in, but that I like a lot, is City for Conquest.
Yes.
Another favorite.
Such a good one. Yeah.
Another favorite.
That is
It's not as well known as Public Enemy or Angels with Dirty Faces, but it's sort of it's a unique story. I mean, it almost combines different genres, and it goes into these places that you wouldn't expect. But I just think that's such a wonderful film. I mean, it's so good. I'm not sure how well known that is nowadays, but I think it's a great film.
Yeah, a lot of fans love that movie too.
Yeah.
The boxing movie. He plays a really good guy, and
Yeah.
spoiler alert. It's almost blind, and he plays
Yeah.
the role like you would not.
So good.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
He studied a newspaperman in the city for like a couple weeks, 3 weeks or something. That was blind, so he studied him, and he did the same thing, and it's just
It's brilliant.
You got,
He's
I
great.
mean, you use a whole box of tissues. You can't. It's just everyone likes it that sees it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, just talking about it, I want to watch it again because it's
We
it's been a while since I've seen it.
were talking about how many movies did he was he able to cry in
Oh,
certain
right.
roles.
Yeah, 13
not many.
movies he's cried.
Cry-
No,
yeah.
13.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, you look at all his movies, and a lot of, I don't know who the director was, the actor tried to cry, and he says, "You sound like a cow. You don't sound like James Cagney crying." Because when he cried, it was so real.
Yeah,
For a man
yeah.
to cry. And I was like, one day I just said, because it came up in the Facebook page that we have about crying, and I said, he's cried a lot. So I went through the films, and I was like, wow, it's like 13 that he's cried.
Oh,
And
wow.
no one ever talks about like, oh, he's a crier or anything. But everybody always says, how great he was doing that. And you don't really see many other actors.
No, he took the risk of putting things in those films to make them better, and they were because of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took the risk where a lot of actors would not.
Yeah, especially then when you didn't see that kind of vulnerability in men.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which really didn't come till later. Cliff, Brando, and that was evolving.
Right.
But,
No.
it's pretty remarkable.
You can't see Bogart really.
No.
You can't see.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Cagney was like the most versatile.
Yeah.
of
Oh,
the
definitely.
actors.
Certainly.
Yeah.
No, I
No one
totally
could do what he did.
Yeah. No, I
I think
completely
that's
agree.
why people are drawn to him for that too. That
Oh, for
quality.
sure.
Because he could do anything. Comedy, farce, light comedy, he's so good at. It's that and dancing. I wish he did a little bit more.
What movie actor who is the most famous gangster in movie history can get an Academy Award playing a song and dance man?
I know. It's like unheard of.
Right?
And I'm sure he stuck it in Jack Warner's face.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
See, but you know what? He should have won for Angels with Dirty Faces. He had the
I love that.
Critics Award. I mean, because he played a gangster, they didn't want to give it to a bad guy.
Can't give it
It's
to
like
him.
it doesn't make any sense. He's acting. It's a character.
Right. Back then, yeah. It really wasn't until the 70s, with Brando and Godfather that,
Love
Yeah,
Me or
it's
Leave
interesting.
Me. I think it's just
he got robbed out of that too.
it seemed
That's the
like,
one with Doris Day, right?
Yeah.
Is that?
Great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw that. That was
or
really
even
good.
White Heat. I mean, look at that
Yeah.
character. How he
Oh.
played. Oh my God.
So good. Yeah.
And it just seems like now, or let's say when I was younger, people would say, how great his movies were. But back then, it just seemed like, he never was nominated for certain roles. They just bypassed him because he was good in everything. But it just seemed like, he was, I think, worth more than one Oscar,
Definitely.
There was no one like him. And it just seemed like for some reason, people just, because of SAG, maybe, it was politics back then too.
Yeah.
If Jack Warner said, we're going to blackball you, the other studios just followed suit. They were afraid of Jack,
Right.
Like even like when he did Johnny Come Lately for his production company, Jack Warner owned, you know, how many theaters, and he
Mm,
would play his movie at his theaters and told other studios not to play his movie. So, you know,
right.
yeah. So it
Yeah.
goes on and on like that. Yeah.
Oh no, certainly. I consider that's a whole thing to study, right? That whole
Mhm.
the
Studio
relationship with him
system.
and
Yeah.
Warner and the studio, yeah, the studios back then. But it's a like again, I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for sending it to me, copy,
I'm
because it's
glad you really liked it. I was curious, and I know you were waiting for the interview to do, you know, tell us if you liked it or not. I was like, oh, I hope
yeah.
he likes it.
Oh no, I really
And
yeah, no, I
unique,
really
unique
liked it.
cover,
Yeah.
courtesy
Yeah, I
of
love that. I
Dayna.
mean, and you mentioned the pictures, the photos inside are I mean, you're not gonna find these anywhere else. Some of the the family, even this one is really nice. I like that one a
Yeah.
lot. The family there,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
r- really, really nice. Him and his mother and everybody. Where's the best place for people to get the book? Is it available pretty much anywhere? Amazon and places like that.
Yeah. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bear Manor is the publisher.
Fair
Yes,
Yeah.
It's all online. You can't get it in a bookstore.
right.
Yeah. So
Great,
you have to order
fantastic.
it online. Yeah.
Well,
It's a
again,
good read, and it doesn't take long to read. It's not, you
no,
know.
it was really quick. Yeah, I just went right through it. It's a very relaxing, like I said, it's that hangout quality, but
Yeah.
and you don't even have to know a lot about him to enjoy it.
Right.
I mean, because I mean I know a number of his films, but I didn't really know a lot about him personally. But it doesn't really make a difference. It's you're learning about the man at this age looking back, and certainly his personality comes through, and the relationship with Bill and his wife, and of course Mrs. Marge Zimmerman. I really liked it. So if you're anyone who's a Cagney fan, or even just a classic Hollywood fan,
Yeah. Exactly.
I
You'll
think
enjoy it.
will
Yeah.
will really really enjoy it, because it's a wonderful book. So I really appreciate you both taking the time to come on to talk to
Oh,
me today. So thank you
thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
Yeah, no, anytime. Where's the best place for people to, if they want to get in touch with both of you? Is it the Cagney group that people talk and chat about Cagney in that group?
Yeah.
Or is
You
that
can-
more of a private group? Maybe I should mention that group.
Well, it is a private group, and there's a lot of other Cagney pages out there, but we're the one. It's James Cagney, and he's got the thumb pointed to him, and he's winking.
Right.
That's the only difference. You know, there's another James Cagney page, and then there's others. You
Yeah,
know,
there's quite a few.
yeah. But we
Yeah.
We
consider
have the best one.
ours the best because, well,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people who are diehard Cagney fans, and it
Yeah,
seems,
I've noticed there's
you
so many
know,
great
we have
comments and links and
yeah, we have a really, really great group of people. We meet once or twice a year. We go to the city, we have dinner, and we get to
I
meet these
love it.
people. And
Yeah,
you know,
that's
we have
great.
the same core 5 or 6 people we see all the time. And you know, people can join in. You know, we used to go to the Cagney play when it was on in the city. We would meet there. We did the Cagney tour, you know, where he lived and where he went to school. We did that one time. It's
It
just,
was
you
so
know,
much
and we
fun.
have, yeah, they're great people, and some of them are like my best friends. I could
That's
even say
great.
family.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's not because we all love, you know, Jimmy. It's just we have something in common, and you know, it's like come join us, and they enjoy the page, and that's, you know,
And a lot of people have been fans for like 30 years,
yeah, we
40
had,
Right.
years. It's not like, and
yeah,
there's new
and
fans also,
we
but
had Eddie Foy join. Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. John does the imitation.
John Biner,
John Biner
comedian.
he does Cagney really well. We have Ryan Cassidy, Shirley Jones's son.
Oh
Um,
wow.
we had Ellen Powell,
Joan Blondell's daughter.
Joan Blundell's
Oh wow,
daughter.
really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who else did we have? Pat O'Brien's daughter. And
Oh yeah,
then
Pat O'Brien's son. Grandson.
We had a lot of Pat O'Brien's family on the page
Oh,
too.
it's incredible.
Yeah, and we have a lot of Jim's grandkids on the page too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
yeah. So it's fun, come and join,
Yeah.
It's
Keeping his movies
it-
alive,
yeah,
keeping,
it's it's entertaining. People,
posting
discuss.
rare photos.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
discuss it. We just don't post photos after photos, it gets
Right.
redundant. Like we want
Right.
to talk about it, we'll ask questions and like one girl say, I'm only a fan for like 2 years. So I said, don't worry, we're not going to come down on you, like you should know that, or something.
Right.
You have to learn like we learned,
Yeah.
we accept people, because some people are afraid to post. They're like, oh my God, because but you learn a lot, and it's fun, We
Yeah.
have some great members, and you're a member, so you're a CAG nerd.
I am. I'm a CAG
Yes,
nerd
you
now.
are. You are.
Officially, I'm very honored.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, you'll have to both come again sometime, and we can actually review one of his movies. We can do that if you're interested. But yeah, I'd love to have
Yeah,
both
that'd
have
be
you back
great.
on
Fun.
sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and or listening. If you are currently listening to this on the audio version of my YouTube channel and you've run out of episodes to listen to, head over to the YouTube channel where every single episode that I have ever recorded can be found. Please go to youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting me over on Patreon, head over to the link patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. And lastly, if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes or when I go live. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.